The anger, the rage, the frustration. I mean, I remember just punching my chair, like, just, it's embarrassing to talk about. But it was like I threw an adult temper tantrum. But it really was an eye-opener to see that equity curve and realize this is the holy grail. I mean, it was, what more could you ask? What more do you want as a trader? You grow your account that way. So I'm out hiking, which I usually do on Saturdays. It's a rather hot day. It's 90 something. I've got my coffee, no sugar, just coffee and cream. And I've been thinking a lot about talking about trading. So I don't know how long this is going to last, because it's not going to be very pleasant walking with the phone in front of me like this. I may have to invest in a selfie stick. So I'll probably do between 5 and 8 miles. That's what I usually do. And I don't think I'm going to be talking that entire time. So, all right, here come some people. I get shy about talking. So.
What did your mom think about his sleep?
Okay, they're gone. So, I want to talk about trading. I've been through hell as a trader. I'm a software engineer, and I hate to say this because it sounds so egotistical, but I'm pretty smart. I graduated with highest honors from Georgia Tech with a degree in electrical engineering. So you don't do that without having some brains. So I figured trading, it's going to be easy. I had no idea. And I think that actually being smart, being an engineer, being used to being right, I think those things are huge detriments to a trader, because trading is about being wrong, really. Predicting the market it's made to not be predictable. If it was predictable, it wouldn't be worth trading. So it's always going to do something that takes people by surprise. So I had to learn a lot, and apparently I'm a slow learner when it comes to this. I've been trading since 1998. I took the Optionetics course with George Fontenelle's, the late George Fontenelle's, and Tom Gentile. So I took Optionetics in 1998, and while sitting in class, we were talking about, picking spreads from all the possible options. I immediately said, there's no way I'm doing this by hand. So I started writing software. Option Insight was the first trading software I ever wrote. So, I thought trading was going to be the way to make life better. I thought it was going to increase my income and, speed me to retirement. Why else would you get into trading except to make money? Well, it was more than a rude awakening. Truly, I remember sitting in a meeting in Boston. I was working for Art Technology Group, ATG, and I had a credit spread on Learnout and Houseby. I don't remember all the details, but I think what happened is Friday, the market closed, and my short leg was in the money, and my long leg was out of the money, and these options expired, and I was a bit of a rookie and a dummy, and I forgot, or just didn't realize. So I got assigned, and I think can't remember if I was long or short, learn out in house speed. I think it was LHSP, and then they changed it to LHSPF at one point. Anyway, Monday morning, I think I was in the meeting, and I'd flown up Sunday night, and I think I checked my phone, or maybe we were on our laptops, and I checked the price and realized, holy shit, am I in trouble? And so I lost $15,000 on that trade. It's like you're in a meeting, you're trying to be cool and professional, and you're dealing with this personal crisis. It sucked. So, but that was not my last trading tragedy. I've got plenty. The next one, if you look at SVXY, that is it's like a volatility ETF, but it's some kind of a proxy for volatility. And I think it's an inverse, if I remember correctly. So anyway, I had traded it before. It traded in a very stable range, like, if I remember correctly, it was like 90 to 130, something in that area. So I had traded it, and I had bought it when it was near the low end of its range, and then I sold it when it went back up. So these trades worked well. Well, it went down pretty fast. This was a day in February. So anyway, if you look at the chart, you will know exactly when it happened, because I watched this happen. My wife had inherited money from her grandmother, and that's what I traded SVXY in. And it was like, it started going down, and I thought, this is a great opportunity. It's going to bounce back the way it always does. So I kind of loaded the boat, and I had no idea what was going on, but I remember after the market closed, it just kept going down and down and down, and I figured this has got to be some kind of technical glitch or something. This can't possibly be the real price. So I don't know if I remember the exact prices. I feel like I bought a lot of it around 110 to 90, and I think it opened the next day at $11. So, I mean, this was devastating. I lost over $100,000. It took me a few years to even let my wife know. And the anger, the rage, the frustration. I mean, I remember just punching my chair, like, just, it's embarrassing to talk about. But I was like, I threw an adult temper tantrum. It's like, how unfair is it? I work so hard. I always do the right thing. It's like I'm someone with integrity. I try and do the best, be the best for everybody around me. And then now I've lost my wife's grandmother's inheritance. The four-letter words, just, I don't even know what to say. I mean, thinking back on it, it's like the emotional charge is gone, but the memory still lingers. So, and you know what? Those are the big painful hurts that you can point at and say, boy, that was a really bad one. But you know what else? The worst thing is not really these big obvious losses. It's actually the battle of attrition that goes on for years, where you're trying to get ahead and you keep either standing still or falling behind. I I spent so much money on trade rooms and education and indicators or tools or research, and none of them worked. I mean, occasionally I'd be up, but it wasn't like it was changing my life. I was still deep in a hole, and I was not getting ahead. This was not like, oh, my life is so much better because I'm trading. My life was far worse because I was trading. There was the expenses on everything I bought. There was the losses, and there was the time and the emotional toll, maybe the worst part of all. So I guess my question is, can you relate to this? Because, this is very real for me. And I'm talking to you as a fellow trader, as somebody who has tried over and over and over again, and just nothing has worked. So I will tell you that in about 2016, I learned about selling options on futures. I had dabbled in futures. I thought futures were really cool, honestly, but I also realized they were quite dangerous because, it's like 1 point in the S&P is 50, and so it's not that hard for it to move 10, and that's 500, or 20, and that's 1,000, and that's if you're trading a one lot. So, futures are great, but it's a double-edged sword. But what I learned about in about 2016 was selling options on crude oil specifically. And it was the first time that I ever really experienced a high win rate. For the first time in my trading career, I wasn't trying to predict the direction price was going to go. I wasn't trying to figure out when's it going to turn so that I can, either get in or get out. Because I'm going to interrupt myself for a second and say, sometimes a winning trade is just as hard as a losing trade. A losing trade is almost simpler because it's like, well, it hit my stop. I need to get out unless I am going to be stupid and, break my own rules. But a winning trade is like, I want to get the most out of this, especially because I'm revenge trading. I've got years of losses to make up for. So I want to squeeze every bit of this out of this that I can. So the managing a winning trade is in some ways harder than managing a losing trade. So anyway, one of the beautiful things about selling options on futures is you're removed from the current price. It's like a huge shock absorber. So think of it this way. If you are in a futures contract, every tick is either making you money or losing you money. It's I think of it as like riding a bucking bronco, in a rodeo. It's like every bounce up and down you feel the impact of. And honestly, the market is like a bucking bronco. It's trying to get you off. It's trying to get you out of that trade. And, they say that the train leaves the station empty. So it's like, if you're not familiar with that, that's basically that the market will try and shake everybody out before it makes its move. So, for a lot of people, they knew that's where it was going to go, but they couldn't hang on to ride the ride. So trading is tough. It really is. So anyway, the beauty of selling options, especially on futures, is that you're way removed. So, that shock absorber, it's like if you are 10 points away in crude oil, then it could move 2 points. And yeah, your option will be worth more than when you sold it, but it's not like it's in danger of being in the money. Now, occasionally the market will move further than you expect, and you'll get in trouble and you'll have to take a loss. But those are not so common. Those losses are rare and they're manageable. So the win rate is the thing I love the most. I'll tell you that when we were creating Trade Unafraid, I had an employee named Ethan. He'll be excited to hear that I mentioned him here. And he would trade lottery tickets on earnings. So he would basically buy deep out of the money, I think, calls and puts. So they were fairly cheap. But it was a lottery ticket. It was like, how often is a stock going to move that much from earnings? So, I don't know what his win rate was, but it was small. Maybe 1 in 20, 5%. I don't know what it was. I mean, he felt that, and I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking him for trading this way. It's just, it wasn't for me. He felt that the gains compensated for those many losses, but I'm not somebody who likes to lose 19 out of 20 times. So, more power to him if that worked for him. But I'd rather win 19 out of 20. And I don't even care if that 20th loss is bigger. It still works out better emotionally. Like, I said to Ethan one day, I don't know how you keep doing this. It's like after I've lost 4 or 5, it's like, I'm just not that interested in putting money on it anymore. So, that's what makes a market. Different strokes for different folks. So, I personally like to win. I like boring trading because I don't need excitement. I just want income. And so that's what I discovered when I started selling options on futures. And what happened is, after doing that for a while, I started to sort of improvise. It's like I understood the basic principles. So now I realized there's all kinds of ways that you can do this. There's obviously different instruments. I was only doing crude at the time. You can do different expirations. You can do different strikes, different position types. Like, it doesn't just have to be a naked call or put. You could do spreads or ratio spreads. There's many things you can do. So I started experimenting, and 2017, I'll have to put the graph of my equity curve, because I came back and rediscovered it several years later, and it's like I kicked myself. Like, how could you have this kind of an equity curve and stop trading it? I mean, it was unbelievable. If you look at it and you're mature enough and you've been through enough hell as a trader, you will look at that and say, I would never stop trading that, because it's basically just a smooth curve from the bottom left to the top right. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is. And I traded it for like 9 months, I think. And then I stopped. But but it really was an eye-opener to see that equity curve and realize this is the holy grail. I mean, it was, what more could you ask for? You know, it's like, yes, you can swing for the fences and want to hit a home run on every trade. But if you hit single after single after single, once in a while you ground out or you pop out. But for the most part, you get on base every single trade. Like, what more do you want as a trader? You grow your account that way. So anyway, those were the early days. I actually called this scalping from a distance. What I was doing was I was trading S&P and NASDAQ mostly, and very, very short term. Like, I honestly don't remember exactly the parameters I was using, but I think it was probably 1 or 2 days till expiration. I think I was trading 20 deltas, which is a little high. I'm not doing that anymore. I also think that the market was a little less volatile back then. I think life has gotten kind of crazy, and the market reflects that. So we see more wild moves. So 20 delta is probably asking for more trouble than you need. See, there's a couple of deer behind me. My screen's so dark I can't tell if you can see them. There's 2 deer. See, oh, look, that deer's looking at us. I hope you can see that. And then there's another one right there, now looking at us. This is it's just a part of the trail that I'm on. This is Caney Creek Park in a suburb of North Atlanta. Okay, so the rodeo, you're riding a bucking bronco, and it's trying to shake you off, and you feel every bump. So selling options makes that a whole different ride, because when you sell options, it's almost like, if I can stick with that analogy, you're not riding a bucking bronco. You're actually, the bronco is bucking inside the corral, and you're leaning on the fence watching. And so as long as the bronco stays inside the fence, your trade's fine. So that's not a bad analogy. And it can buck all at once, and it doesn't really matter to you. So that is the beauty of basically trading time rather than price. Most trading strategies expect you to not just predict direction, but also predict magnitude. So it's like a vector. I'm an engineer. So you have to decide, is it going up or is it going down? And you have to decide how far. So now, obviously, you don't necessarily, as long as you get direction right, you have a chance of making some money. But the question is, how much money, and how often. In fact, I did a simulation that shows every so often, like every 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you want, it shows a trader going long and another trader going short at the current price. And then as it goes through the day, you see the experience of that trader's hold. And we're just assuming they hold, they don't get out. But you can see how the emotions are a roller coaster that, then everybody goes through a rough ride. It goes up, it goes down, they're positive, they're negative. And I even count the zero crossings to see, how often does a winner become a loser or a loser become a winner. And if you've been through this, you know the emotional roller coaster that is. And, you're trading the hard right edge, so you don't know what's coming. You don't know if it's going to turn around and go back in your direction or if it's going to go against you further. So it's hard to trade. So, I think it's really smart to play a different game. I really feel like, Wall Street has tempted everyone by turning trading into a casino, and they keep the things like selling options to themselves. They advertise the big wins, the lottery wins, the home runs, because that's what entices people. And that's why 90-something% of traders fail, is because there's just no way to trade. Nobody knows where the market's going to go. But I can tell you that it's very wise to stop trading that way. And if you look at all the gurus, all the educators, they'll all convince you that they know how to do it. And, sometimes they do. But they don't advertise their losses. Now, if you look at my charts, everything I put on my website, the tables and the screenshots, I'm showing you everything. So I'm showing you real trades. And sorry, my timer went off and my video stopped. So I think the last thing I was saying is that I'm showing you on my website, I'm showing you real results, real trades, all the wins, all the losses, all combined. So that should really mean something to you. I've bought a lot of things from a lot of traders, and they never show you that. They never show you once in a while, I can convince somebody to send their track record, and when they do, it's never as good as the marketing makes it sound like it is. So, they're trading that way. They're trying to be right. And by right, I mean pick the right direction. And it's just tough. So I'm showing you how right you can be doing this my way, and how often you can be right. The other thing you have to do is you've got to be willing to give up on home runs. Home runs, I think, are a function of how much hell you've been through in the past. Because I think that it's like you're trying to compensate for... Whoa! There's a dog there. He started to charge me. So anyway, what I was saying was, I think home runs, I think that need for big wins comes from big losses in the past. It's a form of revenge trading. Normally we think of revenge trading as like, I lost on this symbol, so I'm going to get back in and win. Or I lost today, so I'm going to get back in and win, to make up for the loss. But I think that there's long-term revenge trading as well. I think that home runs are part of a revenge mindset, that you're just trying to make up for previous or past losses. So if I can convince you to let go of the home runs, just let them go. Just say, I'm going to get on base almost every time I get up to bat. You'll be amazed at how fast that changes your perspective and your trading journey. Look at the steepness of that chart. I'm trading approximately $10,000 each day. And I started mid-May, but I really didn't start in earnest until June 4th. And today, as I record this, it's July 26th. So it's less than 2 months, and I'm up 5,500 and change. So I think it's 5,580. So, that's basically what, 2,800 a month on 10,000. I mean, that's 25%. Imagine maintaining that. Now, I'm not saying we can do that every month, but I don't know. I mean, the system works, and it works for a reason. So this isn't like, wow, I'm so good at picking the right option. No, there's an actual methodology here, and the losses are finite. You're not taking on infinite risk, and they're so rare, and we don't take 100% loss ever. So, I think the last 2.5 months of returns are probably fairly representative of the way things are. Now, there may be worse months where, things get a little hairier, but, that's to be expected. The thing to keep in mind about that is this strategy is sort of self-calibrating, because as volatility goes up, then the option premiums go up, and the distance from the current price also increases. So the volatility may increase, but it also means that you can get paid more and take safer bets. The worst situation is a low volatility market that all of a sudden becomes high volatility. Those are the ones where you may get caught and you've got to take a loss. So those are the ones where you have to react. But those are rare. We're selling low probability options. So by definition, they are unlikely to be hit. So, very often there are paper losses during the day, and if you just hold tight, don't do anything, you end up fine, and they expire worthless anyway. So that's in its own way, that's a market trying to shake you out as an option seller. It's just part of the game. So, all right, we talked about trading time instead of price. We kind of touched on the home runs versus singles idea. I really want to drive that home. It's so important to let go of home runs and just look for singles. You'll be amazed how good you feel when you hit, 10, 15, 20 singles in a row. And it's like, I could do this forever. And your account will really grow. I was making like 25% a month on the margin I was using. I mean, imagine, you get ChatGPT to extrapolate that for you. I actually started to do that, and it said something about $13 trillion. So I don't expect that to happen. But, the fact is, the math is on your side. So I'd be happy with 13 billion. I don't need a trillion. Okay. So let's talk about risk, because I'm a big believer in knowing my risk, and you should be too. I think as if you aspire to be a professional trader, if you aspire to be a successful trader, you have to think of risk first. That is the key to lasting in the game. So, if you ask the masses, they'll tell you options are dangerous. You'll lose your shirt on options. And especially if you say, well, I'm selling options, they'll try and have an intervention. They'll try and lock you up to save you from yourself. And at the risk of sounding a little political here, I really think this is the mindset that they want us to have. This is, the fear, the steering us away from what really works. Selling options is like selling insurance. Look at the biggest buildings in most cities. They're owned by banks and insurance companies. So insurance companies are like option sellers. They are willing to take on the obligation of paying you if something bad happens. And they do that because you pay them a premium every month, every quarter, every year, whatever it is. And they end up the richest companies around. So, it's no wonder they try and steer us away from selling options, because that's their game and they don't want to share it. But the fact is, that's really where the consistent money is made. Most options expire worthless, so selling them and then just letting them expire, it's a beautiful thing. You even save half your commissions that way. So, yes, there's risk when you sell an option. Honestly, that's how you make money in the markets. You get paid for taking risk. So, yes, you take the risk, but you actually have an edge over an insurance company. When they write somebody a policy, they're obligated. They're on the hook for that policy they wrote. Whereas with an option, you can buy it back. So you're not trapped in that option until it expires, which is like, that's the worst possible payout, assuming that it expires in the money. So if it looks like it's going against you, you can buy it back and your obligation is then gone. So that's an edge that insurance companies would love to have, but they don't. You have defined risk. When you sell a naked option, your risk is undefined, meaning, the option or the future could go to infinity or it could go to zero. And either way, if you're assigned, you are on the hook for that entire, it's basically infinite risk. That's why they call it undefined risk. But with a credit spread, your risk is limited. So you buy one that is like your insurance policy. So somebody else sells you that one. So you don't have to worry about blowing up your account. Now, if you were to hold it and it was a total loser, you would lose a lot. I mean, when I say a lot, you may lose $2,000 or, something that you don't want to lose. Because, that may be 20 to 40 times what you make on your trades. So you don't want to wipe out 20 to 40 winners with one loser. But you'll never lose that full amount. First of all, we would never hold it till expiration if it's going like that. We would get out of it when the loss is maybe 500 or 300. That's where most of my losses have been. And again, when you're winning 19 out of 20, and you have one loss that is 300 or 500, it's a very manageable, you can easily come back from that. And you can see on my graph how the losses have been, minor little dips and then quickly coming back. And in fact, I've come up with a few different approaches where you can actually make money from those. So I rolled one that I think I lost like 150 or 125 and then made 400 on the spread that I rolled to. So there are definitely ways. This is what I was talking about earlier with improvisation. Once you understand how all this works, you can get very creative. You know, the beauty of options is you have options. So you can definitely find a move to make that will actually bring you back from a trade that goes against you. So it's a great way to trade, and I've gotten so used to just green all over my screen, and you know, it was never that way. I literally tried to be a successful trader since 1998, so that's 28 years, and it went awful every time I tried. I tried following names. I've been almost everywhere, and the promises never worked out. It was just the waste of time and the frustration, and even if I was slightly up, it was like I was barely paying for my subscription. And, many times I lost the subscription and I lost in trading. So this is nothing like any of that. But I can tell you that the time lost and the heartache, and honestly for me, it was rage at times. I'm not proud of that, but it's like I just wondered, what does God want from me? I'm sorry if that offended anyone. It's just, all I was trying to do was make life better for myself and my family. I just want some freedom and peace. And instead, I got debt and anguish. So if you can relate to that, then you know what that road is like. So I think I'd like to talk about daily bread now, because if you relate to all this, I think I can help you. And I say that as a fellow trader who's been through the ringer, probably worse than most. I don't know what it is about me that made it so hard for me to be a successful trader, but I don't think most people go through as much hell as I have. Sometimes I think God wanted it this way because it's made me do certain things. Like I created Trade Unafraid, and then I'm creating lock and roll trading. So now I have daily bread. And I think that I had to go through this pain, or I wouldn't have done these things. So, my first attempt with Trade Unafraid was to remove some of the agony of suffering with every tick. Every time the market ticks up or down, it's like it drags your heart with it. It's like you get hope and then you get despair, and hope and despair, and just up and down, and it can make you crazy, and that doesn't help you make good decisions either. So Trade Unafraid was a way to, without having to create software, you could still automate a trade plan and have it watch the market so that you don't have to, and it'll trade with patience and with discipline. But Trade Unafraid is really made to ride the bucking bronco. It's made for predicting direction and hoping to get it right. So I did a lot of work with statistics and data science, trying to find trade plans that had an edge. So we're not here to talk about trade unafraid, but I think that a lot of the suffering I did as a trader went into that tool. And then, I rediscovered my amazing 2017 and early 2018 futures, selling options on futures, and realized what an amazing track record I had that I abandoned. So then for me, every problem is a software problem. So I am creating lock and roll trading, which is a way to automate those trades, but it's a really neat idea. So here's the interesting thing. While I was working on lock and roll trading, another trading company that I happen to actually be a customer of, they asked me, could it handle vertical spreads? And it couldn't at the time, but I said, I could probably implement that in a couple of days. So I did. And the thing is, it needed to be tested. So, I wrote the code, but I had to know that it actually worked, and worked under live conditions, not just testing. So I started to create some trades of my own to test it. And I was ironically actually hoping for losing trades, because that's what I needed to know is, will this detect a losing trade and get me out of it? So I started doing that, and, didn't think too much of it. I made up my own credit spreads, just the parameters that I thought made sense and would be able to test quickly. And it was like 3 weeks later, and I still hadn't had a loser. And it was like, it's kind of, you have this aha moment, like, interesting, I want a loser because I need to test the software, but I can't lose. So that was a wake-up call. And I started playing with the system or the setup independent of the software. So I was really intrigued by what I had done. And I put together a system that, well, all you have to do is look at my equity curve, and you can see this is real. This is, if you can make 25% a month, that's something. And imagine compounding that. And as your balance grows, you trade more, bigger lots or additional spreads. And so I've got a lot of ideas. I consider this an R&D project, but that's already successful. So, you can't argue with the profits I'm already making. And I have lots of ideas about how to make it even better. So that's why I'm just saying, whatever Daily Bread is doing today, it's just the start. I try and do good things for people. I just want you to know, I'm like you. I'm a frustrated trader, but I have figured something out when it comes to trading, and it's very real. I think I was saying something about the green on my screen. I was so used to one loss after another. I used to think of my Thinkorswim account as where money goes to die, where my money, my salary goes to die. And now my Taste Trade account, it's just climbing the stairs, or it's not even stairs, it's a slope. It just goes up. And you can get real used to that, It's like you look at all your positions and everything's green. And it's really the way to go. So I want you to know, I love doing this stuff. I love innovating, thinking outside the box, solving problems. I love community. I love when we put our heads together and come up with great things. I've been working alone for a long time on this, and so I'm really looking forward to having an inner circle of other traders and, collaborating. This is steep. Not sure if I'm gonna edit the hell out of this, re-record it completely, or just post it as is. It doesn't look that steep, but it was long. And let's see. I just hope you can see I'm a real guy. I won't lie about anything. I don't know what's happened to this world. I don't recognize the world that I grew up in. If you're an old fart like me, then you remember a whole different society and honor and, the greater good. Those things meant something. And they're still important to me. My goal is to make you a successful trader like I have become. Hopefully you don't have to suffer as long as I did. It sucked. I guess I'm just too stubborn. I don't know why I never quit. I mean, there were times I quit, honestly. There were times when I said, enough, I'm taking a break. But it was always a break. It was never, I'm never trading again. I never did that. Maybe I should have. But, I kind of think this was my destiny. And I wish I was younger. But it happened when it did. And, that's man plans and God laughs. So, it happened when it happened. But I really would love to have the honor and privilege of teaching you this way of trading and letting you actually experience winning trades almost every day. I mean, for a while there, I could literally say every day. Until mid-July, I don't have the chart in front of me, so I don't remember exactly, but until mid-July, I had not had a losing day. I had had one losing trade, but I had another trade that the loss was 162.50 and the winner was 165. Now, if you take out commissions, then it probably was a negative day by, $1 or something like that. But, I had not had a losing day until somewhere around mid-July. And then I rocketed past it. Well, I think it took me a week to get past the first losing day. The second losing day, when I did that special roll, I actually shot past the high the next day. So a loser is a temporary situation. I always thought that I'd be selling trading tools, software that I created to make life easier or better for traders. I never really expected that I'd be selling a trading system or, strategy. It was serendipity. It just happened, trying to implement those credit spread or vertical spreads, and I just fell upon this way to trade that is just, how can you argue with it? So I hope you'll join me. I promise you, I will do everything in my power to make you profitable and at peace. I know I've said it before, but I've been through hell. I've been through how bad trading can be. And I did it for years. I just don't think it's necessary for you to suffer as much as I did or as long as I did. I paid my dues. Let's just say I paid your dues too. I have paid I've paid a lot of people's dues. I've really, it was bad. I mean, I know I keep hinting at it, and like, I'm not giving you details. I'm just saying it was a dark time. It was there are the really dark times, and then there are just the times when there's just a black cloud over you. So there's the horrible losses, the obvious horrible things, the emotional toxicity, but then there's just the feeling that I can't win, this is never going to work, and yet I am addicted and I can't stop trying. And that's almost worse. It's like it's there's acute suffering and then there's chronic suffering. And that chronic suffering, honestly, lasted almost 28 years. So nobody else should go through that. I went through enough for everybody. So just join me and enjoy frequent, modest gains day after day and watch your account grow. It's boring. I mean, typically there are a few times of the day when I place trades, and if you're lucky, that's the last time you touch them. They just expire and you're done. And usually you're lucky. Typically that's what happens. So, the times when you do have to do something, it's not as boring. And it's so funny. You get so used to winning that the minute your trade feels challenged, it's like, I hate this. Why do I do this? Because, when you've won 19, you want to win the 20th too. You don't want to have to take a loss. And I will say that one of the things I will teach you is from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is don't panic. Because I can't tell you how many times my trade has looked like it's going against me, and then, it turns out the statistics were right, and it expires worthless. And, it's like it wasn't even close at the end of the day. So that doesn't mean that you can ignore them all. It's like, this is why trading is never easy, but it's much easier this way than trying to hit those home runs. All right, I'm going to pause. And I still think, oh God, God, I wonder where that spider is. I hope it's not on me. If you see a spider around, tell me. Jeez. I practically ate that spider web. And that was because of that dog that charged me. All right, let's see. I wonder how I'm going to edit this video. I guess we'll have an outtakes reel. There's that dog. See, he's still after me. If you see a spider appear, let me know. So where was I? Ooh, there's a cicada being eaten by ants. All right, anyway.